So in this video I'm going to draw one of these amoeba patterns, and these are lots of fun to do. I don't know if you'd call them amoebas or cells, or yeah, I don't know what you'd call them, but I really enjoy doing these. They're very forgiving, you don't have to be perfect. I'm going to do a pattern very similar to this one using acrylic paint. So for this drawing I'm going to use 190 GSM watercolour paper. Now you don't need to use watercolour paper for this. I've chosen watercolour paper because I'm going to be using paint, and I find that this 190 GSM watercolour paper works very, very well for not rippling. Now regular viewers will know exactly what I'm doing here, but for the benefit of those that are new, I like to have a border around my page. I like to have a definitive line to draw up to. Now sometimes I'll do this with a pencil, but most of the time, and especially in my sketchbook, I will use a black marker pen just to define my edges. Right, so for this drawing I am going to be using my fine liner. If you're just using cartridge paper, you can also use a gel pen if you prefer, but I find on the watercolour paper the gel pens just don't work. They just don't want to know, they smudge, they take ages to dry, and it's really difficult to work with gel pen on the watercolour paper. So I'll be using the Unipin pen. I'm also going to use some Winsor & Newton Black Indian ink, and I think I'll use some of this Peebo acrylic paint. This is fuchsia, and I've not used this colour yet, but we shall see how he goes. So I generally don't like using the Unipin pen for long lines, but we will see how I go on this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle on the page, a fairly large circle. I want it to take up about this much room on the page. I don't want it to touch the bottom, I don't want it to touch the top or the sides. I'm just going to do it in the middle. I'm not worried about this circle being perfect. As I draw the circle, when I get to about here, I start slowing down so that I can position the pen to join up with the start of the circle. Don't worry if you get a little bit of flick on the end, we can touch that up with a pen later, it's totally fine. So the next one I'm going to draw, let me move, is around here, but I do want these to touch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here and just draw a curve round, come back here and draw a curve around. So what we've got is a part circle and a large circle, and down in this bottom corner I'm going to draw another large circle, but I'm not going to have it touch this one. I'm going to draw it in the bottom quarter of the page. Slow down to join it up like so. Now I'm going to draw a smaller circle down here, and I do want it to touch both this circle and this circle. So I'm going to start here, bring it up and around and down. I'm going to come down a little way and circle it back around here. Now don't worry if you've got these little sticky out bits and they're not perfect circles. We're not planning on doing perfect circles here. If I wanted perfect circles, I'd be using my sellotape inner, but I don't want perfect circles for this one. It defeats the object of the exercise. So I'm going to turn my page around because I don't like working over myself, and in this space here I'm going to draw a medium-sized circle. Same process. Slow down so that you can try to join the sections up. Now I'm going to draw another small circle here, and we're going to touch this one and this one. So I'll just curve round to there, bring it round, bring it back. And the same here. I'm going to just draw the circle around to here and then around to here. So we've got what, 6 full circles or shapes on the page and a half one or a quarter one off the page. And you can lay this out however you want. You can add more circles, fewer circles, you can have lots of small circles, lots of big circles. It's entirely up to you. Experiment. I always say this, just experiment. It's lots of fun just to try out new ideas. So what we want to do now is draw a series of circles inside all of these circles, and getting the spacing right isn't terribly important, but do try your best, as I will. So I'm going to draw a line inside this one, and I'm going to space it about 5mm from the edge. I'm going to turn my work on this one because on larger circles I find it's easier to keep your wrist on the inside of the curve. Now if you come out too far, don't worry. If you get too close, again, don't worry. There's really no point in getting stressed out about your drawing and about your lines, because it completely defeats the object of doing this style of drawing. For me, this style of drawing is all about relaxation and a little bit of quiet time. So we'll do the same on all of these circles. And they don't have to be perfect. I'm going to keep saying that. On the bigger circles, yeah, I'm going to turn my work. On the smaller circles, I generally don't need to. Right, there we go. We've got our first inner circles. And we're going to draw a few more. So the next one, I'm going to draw about 1 centimetre in from the edge. It's not perfect, it's closer here, it's further away here, we've got a little point there. That's great, it just adds a little bit more interest to this style of picture. And I'm going to draw another one inside it, again, about 1 centimetre. I'm not measuring it, I'm not thinking too hard. Perfectly fine. And then a smaller one inside. And this one I'm trying to keep about 5mm. But when I get closer, I'm not worried. I'm not stressing. So that's 4 extra lines we've drawn in, 2 about 1 centimetre apart and 1 just 5mm. So we just carry on with that pattern. 1 centimetre apart, 1 centimetre apart, 5mm apart. And we'll do that for all of the rest of the circles. About 1 centimetre, about 1 centimetre, and then about 5mm. I'm not turning my work here because I know it's easier to watch when I don't, but do turn your work if you need to. Same on this one. Oh, that's definitely more than 1 centimetre there, but I don't mind. I really don't mind. And a close one. So on these smaller circles you might find you run out of space. Don't worry, just try to get in the right amount of lines. Now these ones are definitely not circular, but I like that. I like when you get a few discrepancies in this style of drawing. There we go. So we have our circles drawn, and what we need to do now is start putting some patterns in. Now you can put any pattern in that you like. I like to experiment and I like to play around with different kinds of patterns, and I also have my favourites as well. I really like the little straight lines, so that's what this one is based around. And all we're going to do is on this outer circle, on the thin outer circle, every 3 or 4 millimeters or so, we're going to put a little line in. So basically putting in little squares, little rectangles all the way around the edge. Now if you find you go into the next circle a little bit, don't worry, because we'll be painting that in with the black ink later, or you can use your black gel pen and you won't see those once it's all coloured in. So this is quite a long and laborious task, and if you haven't got a lot of patience, then this kind of drawing really isn't for you. And actually I don't really know if it's patience that you need or just having the ability to stop thinking about everything else that's going on. You don't want to be thinking about what you're cooking for dinner tonight, you don't want to be thinking about what's happening tomorrow. You just want to be present in the moment with each of these individual lines that you're drawing. And that's what makes drawing like this so mindful and so relaxing, is that when you're doing it, you're just focused on that individual line that you're drawing at the time you're drawing it. You're not thinking about the bigger picture. You're not thinking about tomorrow. You're very simply just having half an hour quiet time to yourself. And I'll quite often sit here, and I've said before actually that quite often I'll put something on Netflix or an audiobook whilst I'm working, just for something to listen to as background music. But in the summer it's so lovely. I sit here with the window open and the birds are all tweeting in the trees, and it's just so nice and peaceful. Yeah, I suppose if you're one of these people that struggles to sit down and relax, and then either this might work for you or it might frustrate you. I know that I'm the only one in my family that really gets this style of drawing. No one else really seems to really understand what I get from it. But they're so used to just seeing me wherever I go, whichever room in the house I'm in. My sketchbook's normally there with me, and I'll quite often sit and just be drawing in my sketchbook whilst we're having a conversation about things, and I'm not ignoring them. They know I'm relaxed then. So I'm going to carry on working my way around this picture with all the little lines on the outer circles. I'll put some timestamps and chapters in the video description so that you can jump around. If you're having a go yourself, it's very easy for you to find where you've got to. And yeah, I'll restart the video in a few seconds, in a blink of an eye for you, as soon as I've finished all these little lines. So I've almost finished with these little lines, but it did just occur to me that I hadn't mentioned, don't worry if some of your lines are closer together, and don't worry if your lines are a little further apart. It really doesn't matter, and it will not affect the overall look of the picture, so long as they're kind of the same. Right, there we go. So we've got our thin lines in. You can see on this section it's a bit wider. That's fine, totally fine. So what we're going to do now is we're going to skip this section here, and we're going to move on to the next space here, and we're very simply going to draw some more lines, as if that wasn't enough. These ones will be longer and thinner, and because they're circular, some of the lines will be wider on the outside and closer together on the inside. The best advice I can give you to try and help with the placement of these lines is to try to make your lines at a right angle when you start them, and then just keep drawing a straight line from there. And what you'll find is as you go round the bend, as you go round the bend, you'll the lines at the central part will become closer together. Sometimes you'll draw a wonky line, like I just did, because you're not really concentrating on what you're doing, are you? You're talking. Sometimes your lines will be a little bit wiggly. Don't worry, totally fine. Totally fine. You'll see at the end that the overall effect of the picture, as I'm always saying, is not actually going to be affected too much. But the more you do these, and I'm quite sure if I did one of these drawings every single day, my lines would become more and more perfect. Right, here we go on the curvy bit. So I'm bringing them closer together at the far side. That one's gone into a little triangle, that's okay. And then we want to try our best to bring them round to be at right angles again. So we want to carry on working around our page, our circle, and fill in all of the second inner sections with these long lines. And again, it doesn't matter if your lines are too close together or if they start spreading out and become a bit too far apart. So I publish a new Let's Doodle video every 2 weeks on a Sunday. So if you're not already subscribed and you don't want to miss out, then do hit subscribe and you'll be notified of those. You'll either get a notification if you've got your notifications turned on, or they'll show up in your feed next time you come onto YouTube. I don't like having my notifications on. I think the ping pongs that I get on my phone constantly are just irritating, so I just generally have them turned off for most applications on my phone. I'll just finish this section and then I will pause recording and restart in a second once they've all been filled in. So I prefer it of these lines on the bigger sections and the smaller sections, but that's just me. Right, so there we have it. We've got all our sections. We're ready for some colour now. Now you can colour this in any way that you prefer. I don't like telling people what to do. I'm just really trying to offer some suggestions. But what I'm going to do is use some black Winsor & Newton drawing ink to fill in the blackened areas that I want. In my sketchbook originally I was using a black gel pen, and that will work just as well. Well, it would work just as well if I wasn't using the watercolour paper, but because I'm using watercolour paper, the gel pens aren't particularly great on that, so I'm using my drawing ink. Now this Winsor & Newton Indian ink, it needs a good shake. Needs a very good shake. It does tend to settle in the bottle. And forgive my cronky little ink pot holder. I made this ages ago, and there is a video about me making this actually, and I made another one as well, and they work really well, even though they are a little bit rustic, should we say. Right, where should we start? Well, we'll start on this circle because this one is the one that I generally have been starting on. And this circle here, this inner space, we're just going to ink that in with the black drawing ink. I'm using a very fine paintbrush, and I'm trying to keep the thickness, is that the right word? The consistency the same. I don't want the black ink to spread out too much, as in I don't want to keep drifting it across the page like so until the ink runs out, because it can sometimes go a little bit patchy. Now I find doing little strokes up to the line is the best way to control the brush. And then sometimes, depending on the position of my hand, I will find that just holding the paintbrush like so, and just making sweeping lines, but trying to maintain some control. And as soon as I feel the paintbrush might be moving, I'll lift the paintbrush off the page. So for the outer edges, I do prefer doing the little strokes, like so. But for the inner edges, I do like to kind of just... You can't even see what I'm doing because I'm covering it up, I'm sorry. I should get my other camera out, but I don't know where I've put it. Oh, maybe I will. And then it's really easy just to ink in the bits in between. Now the drawing ink doesn't take too long to dry, but I do still try to avoid working over myself. Sorry, I had to concentrate there. Only because it's a pain in the backside when you end up smudging your work and having to restart or whatever. But yeah, if you've never used Indian ink before, the Winsor & Newton drawing ink costs about £4 for a pot, but it does last a very long time, and you can use it with a brush or you can use it with a dip pen as well. Now I do enjoy using the dip pen. I don't do as much traditional drawing as I really should do. I do enjoy traditional drawing and I would like to get better. It's just I find for my peace of mind, well-being, I don't like to overuse those words, but this style of drawing is actually more beneficial to me and, dare I say it, my mental health. It's just relaxing. It's enjoyable. It sparks my creativity, should we just say, which is joyful in many ways. So yeah, if you don't have drawing ink, you could use black acrylic paint. Now, one of the reasons I like drawing ink is, especially the Winsor & Newton drawing ink, is that it does have a slight sheen when it's dry, which is really nice. But you could use, yeah, acrylic paint. Black acrylic paint would work really well. Or you can just use, yeah, black gel pen, just fill it in. Takes a bit longer with the gel pen. But I've found it gives quite good coverage as well. Anyway, yes, so we want to do the same on all of the other circles. So what I'll do again is I will stop chattering, I'll stop filming, and you can rejoin me in a second when I've finished inking in all of these sections. Right, I've just put the last bit of ink on the drawing, and yeah, I think you can see just how beautiful that Indian ink is on the paper. And what I'm going to do now is just let that dry before I put the acrylic paint on the drawing. Now I have found that this Peebo acrylic paint is very, let me just move that out of the way for a second, very thick. It's a bit too thick for my liking, but they've got some wonderful colours, and this is fuchsia, is a new one that I've just picked up. I'll put a liberal amount in there, but I do like to water it down. Now I've been struggling to get the consistency right, so I've been using my pipette to measure it out. I have found that if I use 2 ml, it's too much. So today I'm going to try with 1 ml to this amount. I shouldn't really be experimenting when I'm doing a full doodle video like this. So I'm still going to use my fine brush, because I find that if I put too much paint or ink on, I struggle. And also I've got some very small areas to fill in as well. So I'm going to go and work my way around the drawing like I did before. And I'll just pick up a good amount on the paintbrush. And in the same way as I paint with the ink, I don't go right up to the line straight away. I put some down on the page, and then I gently go up to the line. Now I do concentrate very hard to get close to the line with the paint, because I don't want to overshoot that line, and I also don't want any white gaps either. But that's good. And the consistency, I can confirm, is very nice now. So just a tiny bit of water needs to be added. I'm just really just teasing my paintbrush closer to the edge every time, and then I can just be a bit more ruthless in the middle. Now I've been thinking, because I very much like the slight sheen that you get on the drawing inks, the Winsor & Newton drawing inks, I'm curious about trying some shellac to see if it brings a little bit of something out on the page. So if anyone has tried using shellac, do let me know whether or not it works for you and what's the best way to use it, because yeah, I'm all about sharing the knowledge, and I figure that some of you will be a little bit more experienced with certain mediums than myself, but you might be new at doodling, which is why you're here. So yeah, if you have any other preferred mediums for this kind of drawing, do let me know, because I'll be very interested. I'm getting a little bit of ridging on that section. Maybe I just need to mix it a bit more. So these drawings, these patterns that I'm doing here, they work really well with a nice bold bright colour, and I think I will at some point try them with the lighter shades. But I generally, in general, I really do find that these neurographic pictures, they just pop when you add a nice bold pop of colour. And I think this fuchsia is quite demonstrative of that. Now I am going back to my paint very often, because I'd rather do that than have too much paint on the page, because if you have too much paint on the page you will start to get ridges. I might need a second coat in places, because I have watered it down, but we'll see how we go. So yeah, I'm just going to continue with all of the other circles, filling in the central circle with this lovely pop of colour. I have slightly overshot the black line here. That's okay, I can come back later and touch that up with the fine liner. Anytime I feel like I'm losing control of the application of the paint, I'll bring the paintbrush back in before lifting it off the page. If you lift it off the page right close to the edge, you do stand the risk of pushing the paint past the line, which is not what we want at all. So with watering down this acrylic paint, it does definitely look as though it's going to need a second coat. And you might say, well, if you didn't water it down, you wouldn't need a second coat. Yeah, you do. I've tried this acrylic paint before, and I've watered it down to make it easier to apply, because I would just get very thick ridges in the paint. I don't know how to fix that. Is there any way to fix that? Maybe somebody knows about that as well. But yeah, I'd rather put 2 coats on than have ridges all over the drawing. So I'll just carry on with this and I'll be back as soon as I've finished. Right, I don't know what that humming sound is, if that's coming out on the audio. I have absolutely no idea. Something from outside and I've no idea what it is. So I have got quite a lot of ridges and things here, and it's just occurred to me that, you know, maybe this Peebo paint isn't particularly good quality. I don't know. I don't have any experience with acrylic paint, so if anyone does, that would be really helpful if you could let me know what sort of paint that you use. And then it occurred to me that, you know, it's been on my mind for a while now to try gouache. If you've tried gouache with your drawings, I'd love to hear about that as well. So I am going to give it another coat. I'll be working around again, and hopefully, I'm hopeful that a second coat will really finish this picture off nicely. So I will carry on doing that, and so yeah, let's see what happens by giving it a second coat. So I have put 2 coats on and some of it still isn't quite dry, but it's better, but there's still a few patches, particularly on the larger section up here. I mean, you can't tell unless you're really close to it. Let me just refocus. That bit up here is still wet, so that's why that's shiny. So you can't really tell unless you really scrutinise it, but I'm not particularly happy. So I think I'm going to put a third coat on when this is dry, and then I'll call that quits on that one. I say I don't mind putting an extra coat on just to get the result that I want. I'd rather have a paint that was flowing at the right consistency for me than one that is gloopy. So third coat is on, not without its mishaps, so you'll see that in all my future videos until I change my protective paper on my desk, and I would call that a result. So I'm very pleased with this for a very simple basic design. Now if you wanted to add a bit more interest, you could add some additional sections inside the bigger circles like I did on this one, but I wanted to keep it very simple for these Let's Doodle videos, just to give you a springboard to create your own ideas. And also because if I start adding in a lot more complicated bits and pieces, then you might become disillusioned. So anyway, yeah, do let me know whether or not you're finding these too easy, or if you'd like me to do something a bit more complex. I will be very happy to speed forward. Or maybe this is just the right pace for you. I don't know. Yeah, let me know either way. So yeah, thank you for joining me again this week, and do give me a thumbs up if you've made it this far. Your support is genuinely very much appreciated, and I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another Let's Doodle.